Welcome into the Football Guys Fantasy Football Show. We're giving you the Week 16 waiver wire ads. And Dave, you got to think, if someone's watching or listening to this, it means that they won in Week 15, or they're holding out hope that they win. So congratulations to you guys. Let's start off with that. How about that, Dave? Little round of applause. Yeah, there we go. Oh, thank you. Beautiful. For our audio,
I'm sure that sounds great in the headphones.
I was about to say, for our audio listeners, not pleasant. So, okay.
But seriously, congratulations. Yeah. Only 2 wins left to take home the trophy. So hopefully we are steering you in the right direction. We had some pretty good calls last week. Zamir White, Ty Chandler, anyone who picked those guys up and plugged them into their lineup, feeling good about it. And let's go back and double check. But I think we had a clean sweep on the starts of the week show as well, where everybody played pretty well. So let's hope we can keep the hot streak alive when it matters most.
It only took us 15 weeks to be right about fantasy football. So I'm sure everyone that watched is crushing their consolation brackets right now.
Way to go, y'all.
Yeah, way to go. Way to go. Big metaphorical round of applause, Dave. Don't do it again into the microphone. But
I won't.
So, I mean, I know there's going to be a lot of teams out there right now that are still holding out hope, needing some Monday night miracles. Where are you at with your fantasy teams, Dave?
Well, I had a lot of first round buys. I was pretty lucky with that aspect. But if there's one thing that I could change, it would be going back to yesterday and having Dak Prescott just give us an average performance. I wasn't asking for much, Dak. 20, 22 points, what you've been doing all year. That absolutely killed me yesterday. Knocked me out of 2 of my leagues that I had gotten into the playoffs on the back of Dak Prescott. But in Best Ball Mania, this big tournament for $3 million. Right now, I am in 3rd place. The 2 guys ahead of me, I'm within 1 point of. One of those guys has Devontae Smith. One of them has A.J. Brown. And I have Tyler Lockett. So what I really need tonight is Tyler Lockett to outscore A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. Not both of them combined together. I just need him to outscore each of them individually, and I'll be a very happy man advancing into the next round of Best Ball Mania.
All right. I'm looking at something a little different. I need a combined 50 plus points from Ken Walker and DeAndre Swift, while Devontae Smith stays under 10 PPR points. I don't.
Nice. Congrats on the win. You got that in the bag.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Yeah, I'm not feeling great about
that. Manifest. Get some good vibes out there. I think you got this, Alfredo.
I don't think there's a lot of close matchups going on right now for this week. I feel like it was either you crushed or you got absolutely obliterated by the guys on your team, like Bijan Robinson going for half a point. Like, I feel like that's where everyone is. There's no middle
ground. Christian McCaffrey went for 40 and it was a weird week, especially for people who lost Tyreek Hill. And still, I mean, we're recording Monday. Like, there's a game playing tonight, and we don't know if Jalen Hurts, like arguably the fantasy MVP, one of the best picks you could have made this year, we don't know if he's playing. We don't know if he's going to be limited. We don't know what's going on. So, just a brutal week 15. Like, I feel like we've said it all season, but the injuries this year have been so tough. I was eliminated from the Football Guys Listener League. Just couldn't get past not having Keenan Allen in the lineup. And it's just kind of been that sort of year. You're just patching together whatever you can, plugging in Quentin Johnston for Keenan Allen and saying a few Hail Marys. It's been that type of year.
I wouldn't know what that's like, Dave, because I got a bye in the Listener League. What's up?
You sure do.
I really needed it, though. Chris Olave was out. Everyone was out for my team. I was, not in good shape. All right, let's hop into the waivers for Week 16 here. This is for all of you that are moving on in your fantasy playoffs. First guy I want to talk about here, just go double check, because we're not picking this guy off the waiver wire right now, but Ty Chandler, we've been talking about him for weeks and weeks and weeks now, running back for the Minnesota Vikings.
Months and months and months.
Yeah, months and months. Yeah. In reality, we talked about him in the preseason as a guy that could take over for Alexander Madison, and here we are when it matters most. And I kind of joked that we were going to get one of those Mike Boone-esque type games from Ty Chandler where he helps win you your week. And we really did. And so go out and just double check. I know everyone says no one's available in their leagues. Just go double check. You never know when that happens. But Dave, we're going to hop now into our waiver wire.
Never wrong, Alfredo. We're never wrong.
Just late.
We're sometimes just 15 weeks early.
Yeah, either 15 weeks early, 16 weeks late, whatever. We're kind of like the Gandalf of the fantasy football industry. We're on time, always. All right, let's get into our waiver wire draft here. Like always, we're going to do our 2 teams, Team Dave, Team Alfredo. We're going to take turns making picks of who we prioritize on waivers this week. I got to say, this one sucked. I want people to keep watching and listening, but I got to be honest, like as we were
Keep
doing it,
watching for these terrible waiver wire
yeah, no, because
recommendations.
it'll tell us who we're going to tell you how we feel about it, honestly, and dive a little bit deeper into this. But I just felt gross picking every single player here. It's just kind of, I think the lesson here is there's not many reinforcements out there for your team right now. Sorry, I'm not trying to make people abandon hope, but yeah. All right, Dave. Let's hop into your first pick. Remember, these players must be available in at least 60% of leagues. So, Dave, hit us with your first pick, which I think is the only guy that I would absolutely love to grab off waivers.
Yeah, if Zamir White is available, which he still is in 93% of leagues, you got to pick him up. And there's a chance that Josh Jacobs comes back this week. I mean, we really don't know for sure yet, but wasn't able to practice at all last week. So if Josh Jacobs misses again, what we saw from Zamir White is that he is kind of a high-end RB2. He's getting pretty much the same workload that Josh Jacobs received, and Zamir White is a talented player who can do a lot with it. He saw 70% of the snaps. He saw 21 opportunities, immediately went into a workhorse role. This is also a guy that I talked about in the preseason. I like Zamir White a lot. He's fast. He can break tackles. He's got 3-down size. And I think he's a little better at catching the ball than people give him credit for because we never really saw him do it in college. But we did see him do it with 4 targets and getting some work on through the air as well on Thursday night. So yeah, I think this is the top guy. If Zamir White is available, even if there is still some uncertainty on Josh Jacobs, you got to pick him up because if Josh Jacobs misses again, we're looking at Zamir White as kind of a top 15 back.
Yeah, and first of all, he looked explosive right out the gate. He looked great, but as much as I am excited about Zamir White, I also want to temper the expectations because while he's getting the usage and while he looked good, we also got to remember this was an absolute offensive explosion for the Raiders this last week. And that was what we might call a best case scenario, being up by 40 plus points, right? And being able to see this kind of usage for Zamir White. But I would agree with you, Dave. I believe he is 100% the number one waiver wire ad amongst the guys that are available right now in at least 60% of leagues. So that's a good pick right there. I'm going to go with another running back, same division, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's available in exactly 60% of leagues. And this was a guy last week. We were all, both of us, saying that we preferred Jerick McKinnon over Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And I think it's a little bit closer now, but at least for both of them. Yeah, both of them. Just do it. Why not? If they're available. But this is just, it's not one that I can say with a lot of confidence. And I hate to do that with this being my number one pick in the waiver wire, but I think that kind of goes to show you where this is. I mean, the running's not very good, but he's had 4 targets in each of his last 2 games. Isaiah Pacheco now, it's reported he had a cleanup procedure on his shoulder. He didn't practice at all last week. So I know we're getting reports now of Andy Reid saying that we expect him back, but man, I don't know. Like that just seems odd for a guy to have a cleanup procedure on his shoulder, not practice at all in the previous week. And then, yeah, we're expecting him back. I don't know. So I'd rather have the guy in Clyde Edwards-Helaire who's getting 75% of the early down work. He's still getting targeted. He's got some, I wouldn't say great, but decent games coming up against the Raiders and Bengals here. Some positive game scripts where the Chiefs should either be leading or keeping it very competitive where the run is going to matter. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he's one of those guys just kind of hops into some decent usage on what could be a decent offense.
Yeah, and Coach Speak Index, we've talked about this Twitter account a bit where they kind of grade coaches on their reliability. Andy Reid's at 60% reliability when it comes to injuries, so not too great there. I don't think that somebody can suffer or undergo a shoulder surgery and come back the very next week and play football. I guess especially a guy that runs as physically and just like loves to absorb contact the way Isaiah Pacheco does. And that leads me right into my next guy that I have in our waiver wire show today, which is Jerick McKinnon. And yeah, I mean, we've kind of seen both of them. Both of these guys are going to get their work, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire is getting more carries, and he's getting the early down work, and he's involved in the passing game. But Jerick McKinnon really has a stranglehold on the goal line work, and we did see Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I mean, just moss a guy, like completely
that was weird.
Raise up a ladder. That was weird to see. That was one of the coolest plays of the week. Like so unexpected to see a 5'7" Clyde Edwards-Helaire just grab a ball that Travis Kelce probably would have had to jump for. I mean, it was something. But Jerick McKinnon still with the pass at the goal line to Rashee Rice, catching a touchdown as well. He's got 3 touchdowns now in the last 2 weeks. We've seen that they just really trust him because of his creativity and things that he can do in the passing game. his abilities as a pass blocker as well. He's going to keep getting these high value touches when they're inside the red zone. So again, Isaiah Pacheco could come back this week and just ruin both of these picks, Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Jerick McKinnon. But just for the potential upside here that they both have, you should absolutely pick them up on your waiver wire before waivers go through, most likely tomorrow or Wednesday.
Hey, Dave, if I would have told you that Jerick McKinnon and Dak Prescott would have had the same amount of quarterback fantasy points last week, would that have just blown your mind? Yeah, you're welcome. I brought that back.
Yeah, brutal.
Absolutely brutal. All right, I'm going to give you my next guy.
That just, I just want to, it makes me so mad. Like Dak Prescott, he was one of the best picks you could have made this year. Like drafted him in the 12th round, giving you
talking about him as an MVP candidate.
QB1 numbers. Oh my gosh. And then just round one of the playoffs. Just so many people are out of the playoffs because of that. Even CeeDee Lamb gets his garbage time touchdown, and it's a rush at the goal line. Like, all right, enough of that.
He got doubled up. He got doubled up by Jacoby Brissett, who didn't even play the full game. I hate you, fantasy football. I know. All right, I'm going to give you my next guy here, and it's Noah Brown, wide receiver for the Houston Texans. And we talked about him as one of these stash guys to have because the schedule is pretty favorable, because if anything happened to either Nico Collins or Tank Dell, Noah Brown would become a guy who becomes very valuable in this very pass-heavy offense when CJ Stroud is active. And well, we kind of had a lot of things happen. Tank Dell is taken out of the lineup. Nico Collins taken out of the lineup, all due to injury. CJ Stroud taken out of the lineup, even due to a concussion, being in the concussion protocol. And there was talks that maybe he would be able to play. He wasn't able to. You end up with Noah Brown catching the ball from Case Keenum, and he dominated the team in targets with 8 targets this past week. They played really well against Tennessee Titans, and they were able to win that game, and they still remain in the playoff race here. They get Tennessee again in 2 more weeks. CJ Stroud should be back this next week. At least that's what the hopes are based on concussion protocol and how often we see players return in their second week. So they've got the Cleveland Browns coming up this week, and then Tennessee again in championship week. So this is a guy that maybe I don't trust him a whole bunch going up against Cleveland, who has, shown time and time again, they're good against fantasy wide receivers. But if we've got a championship week matchup against the Tennessee Titans, still potentially no Nico Collins, still no Tank Dell, yeah, Noah Brown becomes a guy that if I'm hurting at wide receiver or I need a flex play, I'm happy to start him. It's been a very weird situation for Noah Brown, Dave. In 3 of his last 5 games, he's been a top 10 wide receiver. And in those other 2 games, 0 fantasy points while active. Yeah, 0 fantasy points while active. So it's crazy to think that like those are the ends of the spectrum here, 0 or top 10, but that's where we're at with Noah Brown. So it's might be one of those where it's going to have to be matchup dependent. Does he have CJ Stroud active? And if so, cool. I'm glad putting him in my lineup.
Now let's hope that Nico Collins can come back next week, because it's been nice, but we don't have any word on that.
Good.
I mean, it doesn't look good. Yeah,
not looking good after the episode I did last night with Dr. Chow. He's saying with these calf injuries, it is not looking good. We may not see him back until maybe week 18, if that.
But hopefully CJ Stroud is back next week, and that is good news for Noah Brown. Absolutely. All right, bringing to my next guy here, Joshua Palmer, a guy who really kind of went off on Thursday night in one of the weirdest games that we've seen so far this season. We've been telling you to pick him up for weeks now. We said, hey, get ahead of it before he gets activated from IR. Pick him up. He's going to have some opportunity there. And we don't know what's going on with Keenan Allen. Could be back this week, maybe not. I mean, the way the Chargers season is going, I don't think there's any rush for Keenan Allen to get back out there. And right now, Josh Palmer is the clear wide receiver 1 on this offense. What an Easton Stick-led offense is going to look like. Might have got a little taste of that on Thursday night, but the volume's going to be there. And Josh Palmer, he's a good player. 3rd round pick, not super athletic, not really that big. Sounds a lot like another guy on the Chargers who's had a pretty good career. Now, I'm not saying that Joshua Palmer is anywhere near the player that Keenan Allen is.
Nope,
but
you said it.
In that Keenan Allen, he's playing the Keenan Allen role, and he's just a good, underrated player. We saw him rip off a big touchdown this week. He's going to continue to get opportunities in this offense. So, I'm not clamoring for Joshua Palmer saying you need to get him in your lineup next week, but with how many injuries there are and how many more injuries there's probably going to be going into week 16, I'm kind of looking at him as a plug-and-play wide receiver 3.
And we keep putting a lot of these qualifiers of like, I'm not really confident on this. I think that just kind of shows like how much we're in this with all of you that are watching and listening. is if there were guys that we were extremely excited about, man, that would be the headliner. Like that's the player we're going with here, right? And so I think this is more about
Ty Chandler.
yeah, like, and that's what it is. Like that's really what it is. If there's a guy that I think I can be a little bit excited about, and it's odd that I ended up drafting him third here, and this is at a position of need, I'm actually pretty excited about Tucker Kraft, the tight end for the Green Bay Packers, who's available in 97% of leagues. The Green Bay Packers and Jordan Love have been looking a lot better than people expected. And I know that they've had their ups and downs, and now they're back on the upswing, and the offense continues to look good. And we kind of knew this was going to happen against the Tampa Bay defense here this week. But Tucker Kraft, we didn't know what to expect when Luke Musgrave went down. But he's been a top 12 tight end in 3 of his last 4 games. He's playing a 95% snap share. That means he is out there all the time. He's not one of these specialists that only comes in for blocking or specifically for goal line work and stuff like that. This is a guy who's playing all the time. And on top of that, he's actually really good after the catch. He reminds me a little bit of Trey McBride, who both their scouting profiles coming out of college, and I really love what he's been able to do for the Green Bay Packers right now. Dave, I don't know if you caught this. Did you see when Tucker Kraft tried to hurdle a defender? And this clip is making the rounds. He took a shot right in the sleigh bells. We're being Christmas appropriate here. Yeah,
he went for it. He went for it.
He went for it. That's the kind of effort I want on my fantasy team, though, Dave.
I love seeing big boys that think they can hurdle. Deonta Foreman does it like once a week, where he tries to go up and over a defender, and they just like stop him in midair, and they're like, "What are you doing? No, you can't do that."
Dude, by the way, Deonta Foreman, you just bring that up. Was it 6 carries and -6 yards? Something awful like that?
Yeah.
What?
I mean, if we're going to go off on a quick little tangent here, let me just say, do not start anybody from the Chicago Bears.
But
I
you
wrote
know
about
what?
that last week in my 3 up, 3 down. Yeah, I said it's a radioactive backfield. There's no possible way. There's no trends. There's no correlation. There's nothing we can gather from this. They just like spin a wheel and they're like, and you're the RB1 this week. I mean, do not try to figure it out, because you're going to get burned if you play one of these guys.
No, and you know what? You've been right. You've been right the last couple weeks. And while people were saying run out and go grab Roshan Johnson, we were like, no. And then it was go get Deonta Foreman. We were like, not really. Watch, it's gonna be Khalil Herbert this next week. All right.
Yeah. And then people will plug him into their lineup week 17 and he's going to do nothing. So yeah, just avoid it at all costs.
Yeah.
All right. I'll wrap up here with a guy who I think he was on the Waiver Wire show last week. He was on the Waiver Wire show last week. Look at us. Continuity, consistency. Chase Brown, really like this guy. Joe Mixon just hasn't really looked that good. And I think the Bengals know that. He's not injured, but he's seen his role slightly get smaller and smaller as Chase Brown's is getting bigger and bigger. His big issue right now, Chase Brown, that is pass blocking. He hasn't been great there, but man, when he gets the ball in his hands, he's just a fun player. I don't know if you saw this, Alfredo, but on his touchdown 2 weeks ago, did you see he recorded the fastest the fastest speed of any ball carrier this season? Past Tyreek Hill, past DK Metcalf.
No.
He did. Chase Brown's got some wheels, man. 90th percentile athletic measurables across the board. And this is kind of what I talked about last week. The Bengals, they're going to have a tough decision to make this offseason. Do they want to spend high draft capital on a running back? Do they want to re-sign Joe Mixon? Do they want to go out into this talented free agency pool and sign another veteran running back? Or this could kind of be the audition for Chase Brown to see if he can be the guy next year. And he's doing pretty well with that over the last few weeks, seeing his role and his snaps and his usage grow almost every single week. So kind of the same thesis we have with earlier in the season with Keaton Mitchell and Devon Achane. We just want these spark plugs. These guys can kind of score from anywhere on the field. So go up, pick up Chase Brown, stash him for now, probably not starting him. But let's say Joe Mixon tweaks his ankle next week. We're looking at Chase Brown as a potential top 10 play going into the championship matchup.
Oh man, that would just be so fantasy football. That would be so fantasy football for that to happen. We're here just starting guys like Zamir White and Chase Brown and maybe even this final guy that I'm going to pick up here, Trey Sermon. I couldn't even say it with a straight face. Trey Sermon, even when I texted it to you, I was like, God help me. Trey Sermon, here we go. Available at 99% of leagues, and this one is totally 1,000% contingent on if Zach Moss is out and Jonathan Taylor is out. And then even then, there's the qualifier that you might be getting some Tyler Goodson, the other backup running back there in Indy. So this is one of those, like, you got to pay attention to to the injury reports here. And if you have a deep bench, you go and you grab a guy like Trey Sermon as a just in case. I don't even know how comfortable I would feel starting him, but this is one of those where you stash him on your bench and there's the report that, that we're not going to have Jonathan Taylor that week and we're not going to have Zach Moss. And hey, Trey Sermon is going to be getting a lot of the short yardage and goal line work and he's going to see the majority of the carries and stuff like that. And then you say, okay, I feel comfortable starting Trey Sermon because I'm missing Josh Jacobs still, or I'm missing one of these other running Keaton Mitchell, some other running back that you maybe were relying on. This is not one of those guys where I'm saying, go out and just dump all your fab on him. Don't do that. Don't do that. But reasonably, if there is a running back in the NFL that is going to get starter type touches, you need to have him on your roster in fantasy football. That's where we are. Next week, they do have the Falcons. It's a great matchup. Falcons have been really bad against running backs as of late. They're missing a ton of guys in their defensive line right now. So yeah, if I'm going to throw a flyer on a guy that's 99% available in leagues, I'll do that for Trey Sermon here.
And let me just say, you're not drafting Trey Sermon per se. You're drafting the RB1 behind the Indianapolis Colts offensive line. That's what you're drafting here, which we've seen just about everybody find success under. Also, got to keep myself accountable here. I thought Chase Brown had the fastest speed. He had the second fastest speed. He did surpass Tyreek Hill, but DK Metcalf still holds the record for fastest speed on the season. But hey, Chase Brown, number 2 isn't bad.
Man, that sucks. All the Tyreek Hill stuff has really been bringing me down over the past couple weeks, man. Stop doing this to me. Stop doing it to me. All right, let's take a look at some of the remaining players that are still available in waivers. We didn't draft them in this waiver wire draft that we had, but these are guys that are all actually still pretty relevant. We already mentioned Tyler Goodson, the other backup running back for the Indianapolis Colts, available in 99% of leagues. Hunter Henry, available in 83% of leagues, who he's seen a little bit of a renaissance over there, getting touchdowns with Bailey Zappi, who has not looked bad the last couple weeks, Dave. Do you trust the Patriots offense in any way with Bailey Zappi?
No.
Well said. Well said. Moving along here. Wan'Dale Robinson, available in 94% of leagues. And this is a guy, I don't think that it's caught on yet that he should be picked up and should be added. I know there's the Tommy DeVito, and we're all really excited about the Giants. But Wan'Dale's actually still been quietly kind of productive in some of those deeper leagues.
Yeah, I mean, Wan'Dale Robinson, really liked him coming out of Kentucky. He is a playmaker. Was it the Orange Bowl, I believe, that he had that huge, huge performance to close out his college career? But yeah, big fan of him. And he is just a target hog. He doesn't really draw targets deep downfield. But we saw it last year before his ACL injury that there were a couple games where he had like a 30% plus target share. There was one game where he pulled a 43% target share. We're not seeing it quite back to those levels yet, but yeah, pick him up in your deeper leagues. And Wan'Dale Robinson's a guy that I foresee myself talking a lot about this offseason as a guy that you want to target as a deep sleeper in your leagues.
I mean, we'll have to figure out who their quarterback is for next year, but yeah, sure. We'll get there. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. All right. Dontayvion Wicks, another guy available in 96% of leagues. That Packers offense just continues to be humming. Dontayvion Wicks actually looked really good this past week. Double-digit fantasy points again. Ameer Abdullah, another guy who I know he's the, whatever we want to call it, backup or the 1B to Zamir White, but he was getting used actually a ton on third down by the Raiders. So if
very good pass catcher too.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what he's been for most of his career. And if they end up, going up against Kansas City Chiefs in a game script where they're not up by 40 plus points, we could see a lot more passing there. And last one, Dave, streaming defense, DSTs, defense, special teams. I don't know if you're like me. I love to just stash a bunch of these and grab onto like 3 or 4 of them and just make my picks as the weeks go on, because you never know what quarterback might get hurt and how bad that offense that they're going against might be. There's some really good ones that are still available right now. The Broncos, Bengals, Packers, and Bears. Dave, I got to say, and I wanted to bring this up to you specifically, I was surprised at how much better the Bears defense has been over the past few weeks. And you got to think a lot of that is the Montez Sweat trade really coming through for them.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. I mean, it feels like every defense kind of hinges on their ability to put pressure on the quarterback. And they tried doing that this offseason when they signed Yannick Ngakoue, and then he ended up hitting IR, wasn't really doing that great when he was there to begin with. Montez Sweat has completely turned this team around. And the Bears, believe it or not, are actually leading the league in interceptions. I mean, they have just been ball hawks. Really, I think Matt Eberflus, a lot of people were confused, bringing in a defensive-minded coach with the development of Justin Fields. Hasn't really helped Fields develop all that much, but he has done a great job in his second year as a head coach in turning this defensive unit around. Really excited to see what they do this offseason. They still got a lot of salary cap. They've got some good draft picks. I'm not sure if they want to address the offensive side of the ball or if they just want to continue to beef up what's turning out to be a pretty good defense.
Yeah, I mean, I was really surprised looking at it. There's some good matchups for all these teams coming up, and Bengals defense was better earlier in the season, and they had their ups and downs here, but the team's been competitive. Packers the same way. Broncos, all these teams have some great matchups here. So those are some of the streaming DSTs to look at. Dave, we're almost done with this season, man. We're almost into championship week.
Second to last waiver wire show of the year.
I know. I'm going to miss it. I am going to miss the waivers. It's been a lot of fun speculating about third and fourth string running backs and how they might get you 9 PPR points. But we'll be back again tomorrow with our Tuesday takeaways, giving you a whole review from the week, what we learned, what we want to see going forward, and how it can help you here in the fantasy football playoffs. Once again, thank you guys for watching all the way through. Thank you to our production team, Julia, Dylan, Jagger, everybody. And of course, thanks to my co-host, Dave Kluge. We'll see y'all next time. Adios.